Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon, I should say. Um, Great to see so many people. So excited to see so many people interested in this webinar. So I'm going to introduce myself real quick and also a couple of colleagues who are here. I am Nicole Roeder, and I'm one of the DBT therapists at Gladstone. Our program director, Rebecca Blake, is also here, and she is uh, helping me out by answering questions and helping out with some technical stuff too. And then my lovely colleague Christine Meekins is here. She has her camera turned on. You can see her there. She is also going to be helping with the questions and the technical stuff. So if you have a technical problem or oh, you can't hear me. Is anybody else able to, or other people able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
I
good.
can hear you.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Um, Mm. For the person who couldn't hear me, I'm not sure what um, the problem is. Um, I don't know if sometimes it's because people have like a connectivity problem with earbuds or something like that. You might want to check that. So if you are having a technical problem and you need to message just one person during the webinar, please message either Christine or Rebecca because I'm probably not going to see your message because I'll be talking. So anyway, just a little bit of housekeeping stuff before we get started. I have made it so that you can't turn on your cameras because I'm trying to, and everybody who's not one of our hosts or Gladstone employees here can't turn on their cameras because I don't want, I'm trying to make it so that Christine and I are the only people who show up on the recording. So, so please don't, well, you can't turn on your camera. Um, if you have a question during the webinar, you are free to put it into the chat. I'm going to pause at certain points to answer questions, and I'll also answer questions at the end. And there's going to be a section of the webinar where you'll be able to participate, and you're welcome to either unmute yourself and participate out loud, or you can type your responses into the chat if you would rather do that. So anybody have any questions about housekeeping stuff before I get started on our webinar? Awesome. Okay, well, let me go ahead and share my slides. And these slides will be shared with you after the webinar, okay? I'm also, just as a reminder, we are recording today, and I'm going to also send out an email with a link to a YouTube recording of this webinar um, at, once I get it uploaded onto YouTube. So without further ado, I'm going to get started here. This webinar is called the DBT Guide to Understanding Emotions, and we're going to be talking today about emotional regulation in DBT. This is some of what you learn in a DBT skills group, a small part of what you learn. And everything in DBT starts with mindfulness, and this is no different. So we are going to do a mindfulness exercise now. This exercise is called paced breathing. So, what I would like everyone to do is get into a comfortable mindfulness position. That means that you're sitting comfortably yet alert with your back supported. So, hopefully, you have something behind you that you can lean against. If not, just sit as comfortably as you can. Please close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. If you do not feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can just let your eyes go out of focus and kind of look down the bridge of your nose and don't look at your computer screen. Okay, so we are going to start by picking a pace for our breath. I am going to choose to breathe, to inhale for 4 seconds and exhale for 6 seconds. The important thing is that your exhale is longer than your inhale. And there are scientific reasons for that I'm not going to go into right now. But the important thing is that your exhale is longer than your inhale. This is a mindfulness observe activity, which means that we are noticing things. So as you're breathing, I want you to simply notice the sensation of the air traveling in and the air traveling out. Simply notice what that feels like. Okay, I am going to set a timer and I will let you know when the time is up. So everybody can go ahead and get into their mindfulness position and begin. Inhale and exhale slowly. I'm going to stop talking and I will let you know when 2 minutes is up. Okay, that's time. Would anyone like to share something that they noticed during that exercise? I noticed that the sensation of the air coming in felt a lot cooler than when the air was flowing out. That's something I noticed. Oh, okay. Kelly says ringing in my ears at first, then relaxed in my belly. Nice. Okay, and I often start hearing ringing in my ears too when I'm doing a silent activity. Maybe I have tinnitus. Oh. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being mindful with me. Now we're going to move on to today's lesson. So first, I'm going to just tell you who we are. I think it's important to know who you're listening to. So, like I said at the beginning, I'm a DBT therapist at Gladstone, and we are here. The folks here at Gladstone are from Gladstone's DBT program. We're a comprehensive DBT program that offers full fidelity to the model developed by Dr. Marsha Linehan, who is the creator of DBT therapy. We were the first Maryland program to be certified by the DBT Linehan Board of Certification. So what that means is the Dr. Marsha Linehan's organization did an independent evaluation of us. It was a rigorous evaluation, and they determined that we're providing DBT in the manner that was intended by Dr. Linehan when she created this model. We offer DBT for adults and also for adolescents age 14 and up. And our program includes individual therapy with your individual therapist, group skills training, and 24-hour phone coaching. All of those parts of the program are included for every person in our DBT program. It's not piecemeal, everybody does the whole thing. And our adolescent program also includes family therapy and parent coaching as needed. So when I see an adolescent client, often see their parents separate time during the week to do some parent coaching, and then the parents also join in for the adolescents multifamily skills group, and sometimes we do family therapy sessions. Okay, so let's talk about our goals for today. What we're going to be talking about today is, like I said, it's part of what we teach in the DBT skills group in our emotion regulation module. So, we are going to be learning about the functions of emotions and what they do for you. We're also going to learn about things that make it difficult to regulate your emotions. What gets in the way of regulating your emotions? We're going to learn about the different components of emotions. Many people don't realize this, but emotions actually have a bunch of parts. It's not just one thing, it's made up of different components. And we're hoping that this will help you gain the awareness that you need to begin regulating your own emotions. There are many other DBT emotion regulation skills. This isn't the whole thing, this is a start. So let's start out by talking about what emotions do for you. A lot of people that we talk to in DBT experience such painful and intense emotions that sometimes they might say, I wish I didn't have to have emotions at all, right? Um, and I can understand that feeling if your emotions are causing you so much pain. And the truth is that our emotions do have a purpose. There's a reason that we were born with this ability to have emotions. So, emotions are, really important. We actually need them to survive. And emotions actually have three main functions. So the first one is that they motivate us and organize us for action. They prepare us physically for action because, when you experience an emotion, you usually get a physical action urge that goes with it. Like, for example, when you feel angry, you have the urge to fight, or when you feel sad, you have the urge to cry or like curl up in a ball and isolate. Some of those, or many of those action urges are hardwired into your biology. You're born with something in your biology that causes you to feel that action urge when you feel that emotion. They also save time. So, like, imagine if there's a tsunami coming. You're on the beach and you see this giant wave coming from the ocean. It's a big tsunami. You're probably not going to want to sit there and like calculate how much time it's going to take for the wave to get to you. You're just going to get up and run. And what our emotions do for us is they prompt us to just do that, get up and run. We don't have to stop and think about it. We don't have to calculate anything in our brains. We just instantly get up and run. And that, in a situation like a tsunami, that's going to save your life. It might not, necessarily be life-saving in every situation like it is with a tsunami, and it does save time for many other situations. So imagine you're a student and you have test anxiety. That test anxiety is going to motivate you to study for the test, which hopefully helps you pass the test, right? Um, if you feel guilt, that's going to motivate you to do things that are not in violation of your own values, right? They keep us from doing things that are dishonest or harmful to other people. The guilt does. So they save time, they motivate us for action, and they can be really hard to change because they are hardwired into our biology. Um, Certain specific emotions, I can go over a little bit. So, fear organizes our response to threats to our life or health or well being. It helps us escape from danger. Anger organizes our responses to the blocking of important goals. Disgust organizes our response to something that might contaminate us or be offensive to us, right? So they organize us for action in that way. They also communicate to and influence other people. I don't know how many of you guys have seen Inside Out. I always think of the scene where Riley is the little girl in Inside Out, and you can see all the emotion characters in her brain. And there's a scene where she has lost for a lot of the movie. A couple of her emotions are missing, and then I'm not going to explain the whole plot, but she loses the ability to feel emotions for a while, and she runs away from home. And then when she finally is able to feel her emotions again, she comes back and she's sad and she's crying, and her parents hug her, right? Because her sadness was communicating to her parents, I need some support right now. And it influenced them to comfort her. And they have this effect on others when, we have these biologically hardwired facial expressions as well. So if you're sad, your face looks like you're sad, and other people can read that on you. If you're angry, your face looks like you're angry, and other people can read that on you. And they often communicate to other people much faster than words can. People, in fact, studies have shown that people believe your facial expression and body language more than they believe your words. So if you've ever talked to somebody and you can tell like something's going on, something's bothering this person, and you ask them what's wrong, and they go, I'm fine, right? I'm fine. That doesn't look like they're fine. And people are, our brains are hardwired to believe that facial expression and tone of voice and body language more than they believe the words coming out of your mouth. So they communicate to others and influence others in that way. And they also communicate to ourselves. They can be signals to check stuff out. Have you ever like turned a corner and gotten a creepy feeling? That's telling you, something might be off here. Look around and try and figure out what it is. Um, if you are feeling angry, that might be communicating to you like, I need to stand up for myself, or I need to stand up for somebody else. There's somebody is violating my rights. I need to stand up to that person. So they communicate to ourselves as well. It's also true that if we treat our emotions as facts, that can lead to difficulty. So sometimes we are feeling an emotion that's communicating something to ourselves, and it's based on a faulty interpretation of something. It's possible that your emotion doesn't fit the facts. And so it's really important to not treat your emotions as facts necessarily, and to take a step back and check the facts. We're not going to go into checking the facts today. I just want to point that out. Sometimes your emotion communicates something to you that turns out to not be true. So it's important to check the facts. So I'm going to give you one example. We're going to just go through an example from one emotion. So let's take the emotion of sadness, for example. Sadness organizes your response to a loss or a goal not obtained. Okay, so um, let's say I had to take an exam to get, um, you know, to get a particular job. I had to pass an exam to get that job, and I failed the exam. I'm going to feel sad because I didn't obtain that goal. That goal was really important to me, and I didn't obtain it. Or a friend moves far away, or I have a breakup with somebody. That's a loss. Sadness organizes your responses to loss or goals not obtained. It also focuses us on the things we value. So if I feel sad because I didn't pass that test and get that job, that focuses me in on this job that's really important to me. And, perhaps motivates me to do something about that. If I lose a relationship and I'm sad about it, it's focusing me in on that relationship that was really important to me. I wouldn't feel sad about it if it wasn't important to me. It helps us focus on the pursuit of goals, right? So if I have a goal of getting an important job and I pass the test, I fail the test, then I'm going to be focused in on what else can I do? How can I further my career in some other way, hopefully? And it lets others know that we need help, just like Riley in the movie. So let's talk about what makes emotions hard to regulate. There are a number of factors that can really get in the way of regulating emotions. So, one of them is biology. Biological factors can make emotions harder. Some babies are born more emotionally sensitive than others, and they might remain that way as children and adults. If you're a parent and you have more than one child, think about their temperaments, even when they were little babies, before they were old enough to learn emotion regulation skills or communicate using words. You probably could tell that they were different from each other temperamentally, because every person has their own unique biology and their own unique temperament. And a lot of that is biological. Sometimes lack of emotion regulation skills gets in the way. If you don't know the skills to regulate your emotions, of course, you're having difficulty with that, right? You need skills to regulate your emotions. Sometimes there are reinforcing consequences of emotional behavior. I'm going to use another parenting example. Let's say I say to all of my kids, okay, come on, guys, it's time to get in the car and go. Put on your shoes and let's get in the car. And nobody moves. And I say that again, come on, guys, get your shoes on. It's time to get in the car. And nobody moves. And I do that like 4 or 5 times. And then finally I go, right? And I scream at everyone and they hop up and get in the car. That is reinforcing my intense emotional behavior. And there are many, many examples like that from lots of people's lives. Moodiness can also make it difficult to regulate emotions. So regulating emotions takes a lot of effort and energy, and it also takes willingness. Okay. You have to be willing to use the skill, to use that energy, use that effort to regulate the emotions, and you have to have the energy to do it. And if you're in a depressed mood, that is difficult, very difficult, right? If you're in a manic mood, it can be really difficult to have the willingness to change your emotion, because mania can feel really good and energizing. And, and to be clear, the depression and the mania are not emotions, they're moods. Okay. Emotional overload. Um, if you've ever been in a situation where there were just so many things converging to cause intense emotions, and your emotions went from 0 to 100, and you've got like sadness and anger and shame all mixed together in there, maybe throw in some fear and anxiety. That's a lot of emotions. And when you're that overloaded with emotions, it can be very difficult to access your skills in order to be able to regulate them. And then finally, there are some emotional myths. Before I get into the emotional myths, I've been noticing that some comments. Let me see. Christine, do we have some questions that I can answer now?
Yeah, we have one question. It says, "What were the two things discussed can organize us to mobilize for?"
Let's see. Um, the two things discussed to mobilize us for action, and I'm not sure if I can't remember exactly. Oh, the two things discussed can organize.
Yeah, discuss. Sorry about
I
that.
sorry, I thought you said discussed, like talking. Um,
Mhm.
okay, so disgust organizes our responses to situations and things that are offensive or contaminating. All right, so you get grossed out by something that like looks oozy and gross, like pus coming out of like a wound or something. And you also get disgusted by things that are offensive, like racism.
Okay.
Right?
And then the next question says, what's the difference between emotions and moods?
Oh, okay, good question. So an emotion is a discrete event, and I'm going to go into like all the parts of emotions in a minute, and I think you'll understand that a little bit better in a minute. Mood is a more long term, and um, gosh, that is really hard to articulate. Rebecca, do you want to help me out with that? The difference between an emotion and a mood?
So a mood would be something that is more long lasting, right? So oftentimes people can experience, for example, a depressed mood, and that might be over days or weeks, or sometimes even months.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, that's it. The main difference is the amount of time it lasts. An emotion actually only lasts for 90 seconds. If you're feeling an emotion for more than 90 seconds, it means that you're feeling it more than once. And I can explain that in more detail in a minute. Okay, so I went over this. All right, so let's talk about some of the myths about emotions. So, one is that there is a right way to feel in every situation. I've heard people say lots of times, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And that comes from the belief that there's a right way to feel in every situation. I've heard people say that their emotions are stupid. Some people believe that it's inauthentic to try to change their emotions. So if something's making me feel sad, I need to stay sad because otherwise I'm not being honest, I'm not being truthful, or my emotions are who I am. These are just a few examples. There are many more myths about emotions, and believing in these can make it really difficult for you to use the skills that it takes to regulate your emotions. Okay, so this here is the DBT model for describing emotions. And I know that it looks really complicated. I'm going to go through it step by step. So let's start here with the prompting event. Can you guys see my mouse moving on the screen? It's a little hand. Okay, good. Thank you. Um, so the prompting event is the thing that starts the emotion in motion. All right. Anything happens that gets your emotion started, and that is a prompting event. So a prompting event is like a situation that occurs right before an emotion starts, and it cues or sets off the emotion at that particular moment instead of at some other moment, right? So if I'm feeling sad about a breakup, then uh, the breakup itself could be my prompting event, or thinking about the breakup later. Like let's say I have a boyfriend who breaks up with me today. When he breaks up with me, I'm going to feel sad. And then tomorrow, if the thought occurs to me, oh yeah, my boyfriend broke up with me yesterday, that's going to be a new prompting event. So it can be external, like my boyfriend breaking up with me, or it can be internal, like thinking about my boyfriend breaking up with me. That's a prompting event. And the prompting event has to come with attention or awareness. If you don't have awareness of the prompting event, you are not going to feel any emotion. That makes sense, right? If somebody close to me dies and I don't know they died, of course I'm not going to feel sad about it. I have to know that they died in order to feel sad. Uh, the next part of this model is your interpretation. And I think I am missing a little arrow here. Whoopsie. So, your interpretation of the prompting event is really important. And often, your interpretation of the prompting event has a lot more to do with the emotion that you're feeling than anything else than the prompting event does, right? So, if my boyfriend breaks up with me and my interpretation of it is he's so stupid for breaking up with me, or um, he broke up with me because uh, he cheated on me with somebody, then the emotion I feel about it might be anger. If my interpretation of it is he broke up with me because I'm such a loser and nobody's ever going to love me, then my emotional experience from that will maybe be sadness or shame. So, your interpretation of the prompting event makes a big difference in how you feel about the prompting event. And um, this is the part that has facts to check. When I mentioned checking the facts before, you need to check the facts on your interpretations. That's what checking the facts means. So the next part of the emotion I want to talk about is a pre-existing vulnerability. So before my boyfriend broke up with me, I might have had some vulnerabilities going on. Vulnerabilities can be things like not having had enough sleep the night before, biological vulnerabilities like that. I didn't sleep well. I'm going to be more prone to having an intense emotion if I haven't eaten all day, if I am under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or maybe I'm hungover from drugs or alcohol. If I'm sick, like I've got a cold, that will make me more vulnerable. So those are biological factors that can be vulnerabilities. Other factors that can be vulnerabilities are recent history. So if somebody gives me a dirty look while I'm in line at Starbucks today, I might kind of just shrug it off. But if they give me a dirty look at Starbucks today after I just sat in traffic for 2 hours, and the whole time I was sitting in traffic, my kids were in the back seat yelling at me to move faster, and people were honking at me, and I witnessed an accident on the way there. And in addition to that, I only got 2 hours of sleep last night, then I am probably going to be a lot more likely to snap back at them. I'm probably going to feel more irritated that they gave me a dirty look, right? So recent history, things that happen, other stressful things that happen that day, or long history. If I have PTSD and I see somebody who looks like a person who was involved in my trauma, then my PTSD is going to be a pre-existing vulnerability factors. So pre-existing vulnerabilities are really important to consider. Okay, so all of that feeds into the stuff in the green box here. Okay, so on the left side of the green box, we've got biological changes. On the right side, we've got expressions. So biological sensations changes are mainly internal. So there's changes happening when we experience an emotion, there's changes happening in our brains, neurons fire. There's also changes in our nervous system. So we have internal body changes like your muscles might tense up, your blood vessels might expand or contract, your heart rate might change, your actual body temperature changes, and then you experience things like body sensations. Sometimes emotions can make you feel a headache or a tightness in your chest or butterflies in your stomach, lots of body sensations, and then action urges. If you're feeling disgust, you have an urge to like shrink away from the thing that makes you feel disgusted. If you're feeling anger, you have an urge to attack. So you're having these action urges. Those are all biological things happening. And then on the outside, you have expressions. So you have when you're experiencing emotion, you've got hardwired facial expressions that just come with that emotion. Your posture might change, your gestures might change, the way you move your body. You could get flushed skin as a result of your emotion. And then, of course, there's what you say and what you do in response to the emotion. All of this culminates in the emotion itself and being aware that you're feeling the emotion. No emotions happen without awareness. And then all of that leads to after effects. Okay, so after an emotion, you have a tendency to focus in more on details that might contribute to the same emotion. So if I'm feeling sad, let's say my boyfriend just broke up with me and I'm feeling sad about that, I might start thinking about a bunch of memories of our relationship, focusing in on that, and that might cause me to feel more sad, right? Or if I'm angry at somebody, I might start focusing in on all of the stuff that they do that annoys me, and that causes me to feel more angry. Um, on the other hand, I might have the after effects of being really uncomfortable feeling that emotion and trying to push it away might cause me to think about other things that change my emotion and give me a secondary emotion. So Um, if my boyfriend broke up with me again, I keep on falling back on that example, but my boyfriend broke up with me and I'm feeling really sad about it. And that sadness is so painful that I can't stand it. Maybe I'm not going to do this intentionally, but maybe my brain starts telling me all the stuff that I hate about my boyfriend. And that causes me to focus in on those things, which prompts the secondary emotion of anger, right? And that becomes a second prompting event. And so now I'm feeling anger, and that feeds into this again, and the whole thing starts all over again. So this whole process that I just talked about takes about 90 seconds to complete if you have one prompting event. Okay? If you continue thinking about the focusing in on all of the things that make you angry, for example, then those thoughts are going to become new prompting events and you'll start the cycle all over again. So, it can last much more than 90 seconds, of course. I'm sure all of you have felt emotions for longer than 90 seconds. I certainly have. Most of us aren't intentionally using DBT skills every time we feel an emotion, right? So, um, they can last a lot longer than 90 seconds if you keep prompting it over and over again. I hope that makes sense. Should I pause for more questions, Christine? What is going on in the chat here?
Yeah, we have a couple. So we did share in the chat on the best way to reach me. And I am available to go through anybody's specific insurance plan, and I can answer in-depth questions on estimates. Rebecca did also put in there some of the differences between CBT and DBT therapy. And then we had a couple questions. One says, if you stated, would you be the therapist and group leader? I would not be the therapist and group leader. We have a plethora of therapists at our practice and group leaders. They do vary from different groups. And we have another question, and it says, did you state that no emotion happens without awareness?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And they wanted a little clarity on that. So what if you don't know if the emotion's there, but others can see it?
So that's I kind of like to hear an example there to really be able to answer that fully. Sometimes I don't know. I guess it seems like you would probably have to at least be a little bit aware in order for the emotion to be happening. I don't know how you would have an emotion without being aware of it, though. Rebecca, do you have some thoughts there?
So sorry. Um, so sometimes an emotion is experienced within the body without our conscious awareness, right? So, for example, sometimes as we're meeting with our clients within a session, we'll observe body language that indicates that there is an experience of emotion, and yet the client has not been necessarily aware of that. So when we are working with our clients within individual therapy, we are encouraging them to be able to experience those emotions and notice and have that conscious awareness of them. And part of our DBT skills are in the module of emotion regulation, which is literally just being able to understand our emotions. And that's where this material is coming from. So teaching people about their emotions, teaching people, for example, that, some of us have certain physical reactions or physiological reactions that would indicate a certain emotion. So, if someone's hands are shaking, maybe that indicates that fear is present. And we don't always necessarily need to be consciously aware of that before we can actually be experiencing that emotion. Does that help answer that question?
I think that makes sense to me. And usually when that happens and you point it out to the client, um, often they go, "Oh, yeah, I am feeling fear." right? It's like drawing their attention to it. Thank you. That's a great answer, Rebecca. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go through one example, okay? We're going to talk about anger. So, by the way, this is completely hypothetical. This doesn't have anything to do with my real life. Just making sure everybody knows that. Alrighty. So, let's say my husband, it's night, it's daytime, right? Or evening time, and my husband comes home late from work. And that's my prompting event. And I'm feeling particularly vulnerable today because last night I drank an entire bottle of wine and I didn't sleep well. And now I'm hungover. So my husband comes home late, and my interpretation of that is that he did this on purpose so that I couldn't go out. I had plans to go somewhere and I need him to be home with the kids in order for me to leave the house. And my interpretation is that he came home late on purpose so that I couldn't go out. So, what's going to happen? My brain is going to change. My amygdala is going to fire adrenaline and cortisol. Those are two neurotransmitters. And my body is going to change. My muscles tighten and my face gets hot. I'm going to experience an urge to punch the wall. And also, I start crying and I'm unable to stop my tears. Outwardly, and when you view my face and body language, you're going to see that I'm clenching my fists and I'm using a sarcastic tone of voice. And I say to him, must be nice to be able to do whatever you want. And my actions are that I stomp out of the room. Okay, so that's the emotion of anger. And that might lead to the after effects of rumination. I'm sitting down and I'm just ruminating and ruminating, thinking, about how my husband is always late and never respects me, and thinking about this situation and many other things about him that bug me. And my husband follows me when I stomp off, and I'm still ruminating. And so this leads to intensified anger, which starts this whole cycle over again. So I'm continuing with more anger. Okay. All right, so let's see. It is 12:43. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to start sharing a video clip. This video clip is from The Office. And hold on a second, I have to find it. There it is. So it's from The Office. And in this clip, two characters, Jim and Pam, are going to play a prank on Andy with his cell phone. I want you all to watch the clip and at the end, I'm going to ask you to help me fill out the model of emotions based on Andy's emotion. Okay? Wait a second. I hope I did the share sound part. Give me one sec. I did not do the share sound part. Okay, now I have done that. Okay, and after I press play, if people wouldn't mind doing a thumbs up if they can hear it. Okay, so let's go back to my slides. Okay, so who can tell me what Andy's emotion was? You can unmute or you can put it in the chat. And if somebody puts in the chat, if you wouldn't mind telling me, Christine. Say.
So we have a couple thoughts in the chat. The first person said anger and frustration, and the second person also said anger.
Yep, that is right. Anger and frustration. What was the prompting event?
And then somebody said maybe embarrassed after as well.
Yes, I think that the secondary emotion is going to be embarrassment. I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. Forgive my typos. What was the prompting event?
They said that the event was his phone ringing and he couldn't find it. Other people said that the prank slash his phone was hidden from him.
Yes, exactly. And then what was his interpretation, do you think? I know that you can't read his mind, but he did say a few things out loud. I'm going to say his interpretation was someone hid the phone to because they think it's funny. Because remember, he said some people think it's really funny to hide people's property. Okay. What about vulnerabilities?
Someone said everyone was doing it on purpose.
Yes, yeah, that was the prompt, the interpretation. Thank you. So can you think of any vulnerabilities that were evident from the video clip? I know that we don't know how he slept last night. We don't know if he's feeling sick or if he ate breakfast. Can you guess what at least one of the vulnerabilities might have been? It was that it happened. Oh, did somebody say something?
A couple of people said stress and that the phone kept ringing,
Exactly. It happened multiple times, right? The very first time it happened, you notice his reaction was much different from the last time it happened.
and also lack of trust there.
Okay. And of course, it's possible that he didn't sleep well last night or he's feeling sick. We don't know. All right, so let's talk about biological differences. So we can't see inside his brain, and I am going to just say that I think probably his amygdala was firing neurons. Um, and probably cortisol and adrenaline. Okay, let's spell adrenaline. Body changes. Could we notice any body changes? It's kind of hard to see inside his body, but did you notice any body changes that you could tell from the video?
Muscle tension,
Yeah.
stooped posture, and then the breathing, and that his face was red.
Yes, exactly. And then what action urges did he experience? I mean, you really can only tell from his actions, but he punched a wall, right? So he probably had the urge to punch something.
We have yelling and punching the wall.
Yes. Okay, so how did this get expressed? What was his tone of voice like?
And raised voice, accusatory and sarcastic.
Yes, accusatory. And he said, I'm not going to write all the words he said, but he said something to the effect of, some people think it's funny, dot, 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 to take other people's belongings and hide them. And then his anger, his actions, we already discussed, were punching the wall and yelling. Okay. And then, so that led to anger. And then the after effects were he felt embarrassment. He probably, I'm going to guess, oh, wait. Yeah, he probably was thinking about, noticing other people looking at him, especially his boss looking at him, and seeing that he did something and thinking about, like, oh, that's not an appropriate thing to do in the workplace, right? Okay, any questions about that clip before I move on? Or about the exercise? Okay, so that brings us to the end of the presentation. I'm going to stop now for any additional questions that people have. And you can either unmute and say it out loud, or you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, hi, I have a quick question. Thank you so much for the presentation. So I was curious if the if someone has an emotional experience but they don't have those action urges, is that I mean, obviously there's like obvious work for like therapeutic like interventions, but does it change? Because I imagine a lot of the interventions is preventing like those action urges. But if, for example, someone gets really angry and they kind of just hold on to the anger and it raises their blood pressure and stuff like that, um, do you change the intervention or do you come at it differently or what do you do there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot is going to depend on the person's urges that they have, right? So, um, some people, when they're angry, have an urge to fight back. Some people have an urge to beat themselves up. Some people have an urge to get away from the thing that they're angry at. They might have an urge to do many different things. And so, if the thing that they're having the urge to do is harmful, then for sure we want to intervene with some distress tolerance tools to help them not act on that action urge. We don't want to punch a hole in the wall at our office, right? Um, so and a lot of what we work on doing is noticing those action urges. And one of our DBT skills is called stop. So we notice the action urge and then we stop everything and take a step back. That's what the T in stop stands for. So we observe, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's going on around me before we proceed mindfully and, decide what we're going to do next. Um, does that answer? I feel like I haven't really answered your question. I'm not sure if I did
No,
or not.
it's more about like if someone's action urges aren't something that look like self-harm, substance use, lashing out, like if they're just holding onto it and it's not, they can still function, but it's still negatively impacting them, like where they kind of sit and stew and maybe it's not going anywhere, but
Gotcha.
it's still like, cortisol flooding the body, not good, stuff
Sure.
like that.
Yeah, so we have it, a lot of people do try to suppress their emotions, and the problem with that is, like you said, those biological things going on, like cortisol flooding the body, is not healthy. In addition to that, we do need to be able to experience our emotions, and your emotions are going to keep on coming back if you try to suppress them. They're not going to go away. So we might use a skill called mindfulness of current emotion that involves noticing what you're feeling, stopping everything, and really just observing the emotion and the sensation that it gives you in your body. The emotion of anger might cause me to feel a tightness in my chest, right? So, or butterflies in my stomach, right? So I'm going to stop and notice it with curiosity without trying to push it away and without trying to hang on to it, and just allow myself to notice what that feels like so that my emotion can kind of pass through me. There are many other skills that we also use for emotion regulation, and that was a super duper quick explanation of how to use mindfulness of current emotion. I
Thank you. That
hope.
was very helpful.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad. We have a couple minutes left. Any other questions before we log off? And as a reminder, I'm going to send out these slides and the video to everybody who registered, and the video will be on Gladstone's YouTube channel as well.
There's a couple other questions. There's one, I'm not sure if you want to read it. You might read it better for me. Um,
Let me see.
it's about how the teachings for this.
Um, I might have scrolled too far up.
All the way at the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. How do you work on cheating? No. I've done DBT with my teen daughter. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. I've done DBT with my teen daughter before, and I'm having a similar experience now that I didn't want the broader group to read. Okay. It feels condescending, like I'm a kindergartner being taught this stuff. I get that perhaps I need to learn it, hence why I'm here, but The way it gets taught is excruciating, causing me to check out. Any thoughts? Yeah, that sounds like it's normal to feel talked down to, or maybe shame when somebody's teaching you something and you're having, I don't know what thoughts you're having about it, but sometimes not going to say that this is about you, but a guess about what might happen with people in general is that sometimes um, when somebody's explaining something to me, maybe I think like, what do you think, I'm stupid? Why would I need you to tell me step-by-step instructions for something that's this simple? Um, and so in that case, I might need to check the facts on my interpretations of it. And then it also might be that the person teaching it is teaching it in a judgmental way. And that might be problematic. Um, so there are lots of different things you can do about that. We always say in DBT that every problem has 4 potential solutions. One is to solve the problem. So if you can, right? So if you feel like you're being talked down to and you check the facts and you come away from checking the facts with the belief that, yes, this person really is talking down to me, then the solutions might be to use a dear man to ask that person to talk to you in a different way, maybe give them some specific feedback about what about their explanation sounds condescending, and ask them to change. Another problem solving idea is to leave the group and go to a different DBT group or learn the information from somebody else. The second option for solving any problem is to change the way you feel about it. So that might involve checking the facts, right? So maybe somebody is trying to explain something to me and they are not intending to talk down to me. Maybe they're teaching it. Um, Maybe I'm interpreting the way that they're teaching it as condescending, and that's not what that person intended. And so if I check the facts and I determine that that's not what they intended, that might help me to change the way I feel about the way that they're talking to me. And there are more skills involved there too, like using opposite action. So an opposite action to to that emotion might be me asking genuine, detailed questions to the instructor, and me intentionally telling myself they're doing their best to teach this to me the best way they know how. Um, then the third option is to tolerate the problem. So I might use some distress tolerance skills during the presentation, like paced breathing, the one that we did at the beginning of this session, this webinar, can help me just be able to tolerate sitting there listening to a person who's talking in a condescending way. And then the final option is to do nothing and stay miserable or potentially make the situation worse, which is not one that we recommend, of course. I hope that answers your question.
And then we had one last question, which looks like it says, how do you work on changing your biological reactions and brain firing? So like stress responses.
Yeah. So, um, I there are a couple of things that can help. Medication can help with that. And overall, changing your biological responses over time. If you practice mindfulness every day, that might help over time change your stress responses. And then another thing you can do is in the moment, we actually have some distress tolerance skills that change your biology in the moment. One of them is TIP. And since it's 103, I'm not going to go into how to use TIP because that would take too long. But I encourage you, if you just Google DBT TIP or put that into the search bar on YouTube, there are lots and lots of videos and explanations for how to do TIP. And on actually, one of these free webinars that I did several months ago gives a detailed explanation about how to use TIP, and that is on Gladstone's YouTube channel. And I think that just about everybody who registered for this has my email. If you want to email me, and I think Christine also put in the chat how to get in touch with her, I'd be happy to send you a link to that video as well. But you can also just look on Gladstone's YouTube channel.
And on
Okay.
our website. We also have all of our linked webinars on our website.
Yes, thank you. Yes, gladstonepsych.com. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. That brings us to the end of our webinar. And look out for an email from me with a link to the YouTube video and the slides. Have a great day.